Well, I have a younger gardening friend with me today, Mr. JD Prater of Stillwater. And JD's going to help me show the importance of measurements for gardening. We're going to be planting some mustard seed. JD, welcome to Oklahoma Gardening.
Thank you.
Now, the first thing that we need to do is measure up our space here to know how big of a garden spot we're going to use. And we're putting a mustard seed in a raised bed, so I'm going to have you help me measure this.
Okay.
And if you'll hold that across there to the inside of the landscape timbers, great. We're looking at about 2.5 feet. And let's have you step right up here and hold that one, okay?
Okay.
So 2.5 by 4 feet. So to get our square footage, we can multiply that, 2.5 by 4, and we'll come up with 10 square feet. But JD and I have figured out another way to visualize that to make it a little bit easier. And these are just nothing more than kitchen tiles that are 12 inches by 12 inches, and we've already measured them, haven't we?
Yeah.
So if we lay those out, we should have how many? If we have 10 square feet.
Yeah.
10 tiles, right?
Yeah.
So let's count them. How many we've got there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And now what do we do? Because we've got half of them, right?
Yeah, so you put them together.
Two
and it makes
together,
one.
perfect. And 2 here, so we have 10 of them. So we have 10 square feet in this spot. So now we can visualize how big our garden spot is. So JD, why don't you start taking those up for me, and we'll leave these here on the end and we'll get ready to plant. Of course, like any garden, once you know your square footage, you need to put in your fertilizer next. And our soil test told us on this particular one that we needed a complete fertilizer, which included nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And we're going to use triple 13. And JD, come right over here and have a seat, and go ahead and put that glove on for me.
Okay.
We know that we need 1.2 ounces of triple 13 to go just in our 10 square foot area, and that's based on the fact that we use 1 pound of actual nitrogen, and that would actually give us 7.5 pounds per 1,000 square feet. And again, when we figure that up, we're only putting 1.2 ounces, and that's not a lot, is it?
No.
And one way that we're going to do that to show, because most people fertilize by hand, and I've asked him to wear a glove, reach in there and get a handful of fertilizer and drop it here in the Pyrex jug for me. Okay. And that actually, that's enough there. That comes out to just about 2 ounces. And so really it's a little bit more than what we need for the 10 square foot area. And that's not a lot of fertilizer, is it?
No.
So that's all that would go in the area that we had marked out. So normally we'd work that into the soil, but we've just had a lot of cool, wet weather, and so we're not going to really work the soil up yet. So the fertilizer is very important, and we know how much we'd put on. So now you know that your hand holds about 2 ounces, and you'd be able to calculate that out anytime you're going to be fertilizing. Well, the next thing is to actually plant the seed, right?
Yeah.
And here's what we're putting in. We're putting in a brown mustard seed, and this is to actually get the seed. We don't want the foliage, so we're going to let it go to seed, and the hot temperatures coming up will help it bolt on us. And if we read the instructions, we know that we have to put this seed 1/2 inch deep, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how far apart?
12 inches.
12 inches, so that's 1 foot. So that makes it kind of easy for us. And one thing that's always important to try to get a straight row is we have a little marker here with a string, and that's 4 feet long, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a little bit of it hanging off the bed. We're going to put it in 6 inches halfway instead of the foot. So we're going to plant some seed, and we're going to put it 1 foot apart. Now if we do it 1/2 inch. Let me show you another way, JD, to make it easy. Do you like to get your hands in the soil?
Yeah.
Get them dirty. Okay, stick your finger up here. And from your first joint, it's about 1/2 inch. So you would make the planting hole that deep up to the first joint there of your hand. So why don't we go ahead and put one right on the very end.
Okay.
So right at the 1/2 inch, okay. And yeah, every foot apart. And then once you do that, why don't you go ahead and drop a couple of seeds, pour them out in your hand like this, and put a couple of seeds in each hole, and we'll get that row finished. And I'll talk to them about people who don't like to get their hands dirty. And it's interesting that actually a 6-year-old named Brian Noel, who was a first grader, entered a, actually it was an Invent America contest. In 1992, he invented this speedy seeder, it's called. And basically what it does is you can loosen this knob back here and adjust the planting width or the planting depth. And so we've got it set for a 1/2 inch. So we could actually come in here, and JD is putting in a couple of seeds or so in each hole. And we can do the same thing by spacing it, and it doesn't drop the seed, but it helps you get the right depth and the spacing. So that's a pretty nifty thing, wouldn't you say? JD, I wish you and I would have came up with that idea, don't you think? Been pretty nice. So a speedy seeder, and kids love to garden. You'd be surprised at some of the things that they would come up with. So now if we've had a row there, we're gonna cover it up right. We put a couple of extra seed in there just in case we don't have any germinate. And so if we put 12 inches apart, now what would we need to do?
12 inches apart.
Right, we'll move it over, and we decided this would be easy to do, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So you could space it with our tile again and move the stake over. Okay, and I'll let you do that. And JD, I appreciate you helping, being a guest here. Does this help you out visualize it a little bit better?
Yeah.
And figuring up the square footage and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you also like to garden at home too, don't you?
Uh-huh.
What kind of things have you been planting at home?
Beans, peas, lettuce, radish.
Okay,
and potatoes.
good deal. So we'll have to share some of those with them. So JD, thanks for being on the show, and hopefully this will help out, and I'm sure a lot of the kids out there watching will get some good ideas too. Thanks again.